And hi, this is Paul Gibbons here to talk about Change Agility, which is one of three parts of adaptive adoption. And it's a program that we are going to be running a certification course in the fourth quarter of 2026. This is a walk through the framework, help you understand it better, and help you decide whether certification in this frontier change framework for artificial intelligence is something that you might be interested in. You can find me at paulgibbonsadvisory.com. There are dozens of free tools, free white papers, and a link to my services. The courses that we are building now, my team are on Maven, so let's get into it. One of the things that dawned on me early in my consulting career was that if you took the logos off all the proposals from all the big consulting firms, McKinsey, BCG, Accenture, PwC, KPMG, Ernst & Young, etc., you could not tell them apart. And the reason for that is that almost all of the methodologies, particularly in change, particularly in leadership, look the same. And so this 3-decade hunt for big consulting firms to differentiate themselves has been a failure. I was brought into both Deloitte and IBM in this decade to try and bring their change management frameworks into the 21st century. I'm sad to say I was at neither firm long enough to achieve that. And one of the things is that there's what we call in systems thinking vendor lock-in, is that once change practitioners are locked in, they proudly show their ProSci certification on their LinkedIn page. Once there's that sort of lock-in, innovation is very hard to come by. So one of the benefits of adopting a newer, differentiated, and branded approach, one that's grounded in science and evidence, is that you will stand out at the proposal stage of your change AI adoption project. And if it matters to you standing out and using methods that are firmly grounded in 21st century science, listen, I'm going to tell you more about how that's going to look. Adaptive adoption was developed in 2024, although I dare say the first change management framework I developed was in 1996 at PricewaterhouseCoopers, called Corporate Transformation, which had 9 roughly sequential steps for achieving what was starting to become a big deal in the mid-1990s and certainly accelerated was digital transformation. So that's my history, is I was there, so to speak, at the birth of digital transformation and change management 35 years ago. I ran my own firm, a leadership development firm, for a decade. So the adaptive adoption framework is birthed in 2024, but is the product of 30 years of research. The Leadership Delta is part of it, because calling someone a sponsor does not make them a leader. Calling them a change champion does not make them a leader. Change agility, because trust, innovation, and human capability are the coin of the realm in this new world of AI transformation. And behavioral governance, because part of any change program is the governance aspect, and that means not just policies and PDFs and policing, but we need gas pedals as well as brakes. We need ways of accelerating, reducing organizational frictions, as well as ways of protecting the enterprise and its stakeholders from this new technology. So our adaptive adoption is different insofar as it's public, it's on GitHub, it's not proprietary, paywall behind PDFs and certifications. It iterates constantly. There's a team of people right now reviewing it for its robustness. It's I'm not so inclined to believe that, even though it's a product of 30 years research, that it left my pen perfectly formed. It's each element of the framework has 20 or 30 citable references. It's evidence-based. It's being reviewed. There are structured data. There are dozens of tools. There are model cards. There are executable artifacts. It's built for the 21st century and using 21st century tools. Let's talk a little bit about that. So the difference between adaptive adoption and some of the other branded change methodologies that are around, there are 3 systems, 20 different pillars, a 6-6-7 formation. Usually there's 1 system. Usually there's 3 C's or 5 steps or ADKAR or 8 steps if you're Potter, Humphreys, change, Reed-Rees. It's more complex. Change is complex. And there are many emergent features that aren't captured by the linear, simple system 4 C's, 4 L's, ADKAR type models. We use behavioral science and real behavioral diagnostics, not just attitudinal surveys. Trust and ethics are built in. Trust is sometimes, rarely, mentioned in the OG change methodologies. This is built in. Trust doesn't happen accidentally as a result of good leadership or good change management. It's something we say needs to be managed actively and proactively and not treated as an add-on. It's an AI native change methodology, which means it's built in this decade for the sorts of changes happening right now, which isn't programmatic SAP rollouts that dominated the 90s and the 2000s. It is based upon the ability of practitioners not just to speak about it, but the ability of practitioners to build with it. And this applies to the change world. There's a very small compass of people in the world, maybe 100, but maybe many fewer than that, who are both masters of the dark arts of organizational change and masters of the dark arts of AI. I want to triple underline that. We go into change management often because of a commitment, a humanistic commitment to making people's working lives better and change go better. And those humanistic sentiments are noble in the extreme, but it often means that my dear colleagues and friends, and there are tens of thousands of them in the change and leadership worlds, are perhaps not hostile to, but reluctant to get their fingers dirty with using this new technology. And I think that's insufficient. And the adaptive adoption framework is built, it has skills dimension, but 2 kinds of skills: human skills for each of the 20 pillars, and AI skills.md, because a lot of the change work that we're doing now is hybrid, human and machine working in tandem. So I want to tease the central pillar of it, change agility. These are the 7 dimensions: master the craft, embrace complexity, consciously manage, trust, put people first, design and prototype, prioritize behavior, and manage ethics always. One of the things that's different about this is that ethics is baked in. We are dealing with an extremely powerful technology that has a massive ethical footprint. And to have a change framework that's silent on organizational ethics and the harms that could be done to relationships with key stakeholders or to the enterprises or for data breaches. These are the sorts of things, the ethical dilemmas that frontline users of AI have to be alert to. Ethics does not live in PDFs circulated among the board and compliance theater. It needs to live in the behaviors of the front line, and that's what this does. Trust is not an afterthought, it's front and center. This is behavioral science based, which is why we say prioritize behavior. Putting people first is both a humanistic sentiment, is like what really matters in organizations, is that we make people's working lives better, but coincidentally, it's a tactical win because AI is not uniformly embraced in light. There's a lot of trust issues, and there are a lot of valid reasons why people might be suspicious of the technology. But by putting their working lives first, tactically, you build trust and you build human capability, which eventually makes your high ROI efficiency drives go better. And master the craft is what happens after literacy and fluency, which are concepts from 2023 and 2024. There are tens of thousands of posts on AI literacy around. It's completely insufficient. Master the craft is something more radical and different, and dare I. Let me now share with you some of the bumper stickers from the Change Agility. Master the craft, it's carpentry, not calculus. AI mastery is built and designed and not taught in webinars. Embracing complexity, my former colleague, Mr. Snowden, and his Cynefin framework is at the heart of it. It's only one approach to complexity, but it's certainly one that's the masterful job he's done is making it practical. Consciously managing trust, we have an instrument for doing that, putting people first, augmentation before automation, designing a prototype, straight out of the Agile and Design Thinking playbook. It's a part of the change framework. So we have a change management, change agility framework that has design thinking and prototyping baked in. It's behavioral science. It's nice that people have good intentions, but it's completely insufficient when we want to get organizational change to work and efforts, as first I've mentioned. Each of the 20 elements has a model card. They look something like this. Basically the elements, the backstory, the research, and the tools are captured in a 3 page PDF. These are available for free, and these are, if you will, guides for each of the 20 pillars. Trust is, as I said, sometimes treated as an accident, a happy accident of good leadership, of good change communication. But trust is more complex, and there are two failure modes with AI: overtrusting and undertrusting. Overtrusting it means that problems are hidden, and means that we don't sufficiently verify model outputs when we're using AI in work. And there are 4 dimensions of trust. One is relational. Do we trust the leadership of the firm to look after our career interests and to govern AI properly? Institutional trust in not just our firm, but in the model labs. Self-trust. Do I trust that I'm going to be able to learn this? That I'm going to be able to keep up with this? It's related to Bandura's self-efficacy theory. And task trust. Do we overtrust or undertrust AI to presume to perform a task? So that's the RIST framework: relational, institutional, self, and task. And there's a diagnostic available which helps change professionals diagnose trust. And since there are different failure modes, overtrust or undertrust, and there are different dimensions of it, we can target those more surgically rather than just waving our hands in the air, and then hoping that trust will emerge from good leadership or other. One of the tools I'll give you a little look at is the Skeptics Roundtable. A question I get asked in webinars all the time is, what do we do about the people that don't trust this thing or don't like it or don't wish to use it? What do we do with skeptics? And one of the things we have to do is stop treating them like idiots or people who need to get with the program. I can understand the sentiment, but that's never changed anyone's behavior ever. And so one of the ways of bringing skeptics, if you will, into the fold, well, 2 ways, but one way is People First AI, which we talked about. But the second way is to have a skeptics roundtable, is give people a voice and give them a space to rationally discuss their concerns. And that is infinitely better than STFU and JFDI, which is sometimes the way that change management has been run. There's an ad from Harvard advertising their proprietary change framework that hasn't changed since 1988. somewhat ironic. We have a change framework that hasn't changed in almost 40 years. Their thing, we have to quash resistance, and that's one way of dealing with organizational skepticism and lack of trust. Here's another way. The Skeptics Roundtable is just one of the tools that you can run in order to begin to have a dialogue in the firm about ethics and about AI adoption. So I'm not saying that I'm going to run a ProSci decertification program, because change management would go infinitely better in the world if that framework would be sunset in the way that I don't think it's going to have the lock-in. I will say, by the way, I came to the United States in 2008. I'd never heard of it, and I'd been a change management practitioner. I'd been at the front of change management, designing change management, running $100 million change programs. I'd never heard of ProSci until I came to the United States in 2008, and all of a sudden there's this big thing. So I evaluated it there as someone who's designed, built, advised senior executives, been at the very top of firms like PwC and IBM in organizational change. Does this framework add anything to the change conversation? My conclusion was no. ProSci, as they say in England, are laughing all the way to the bank because they are the brand leader for no good reason that I can discern. One of the things that I think is fascinating, which is coming up in the next few months, is what AI enables you to do. Because it collapses the execution layer, the premium in the world is on the imagination layer, which begins the creative process. And with this execution unlock, my hope for humanity as well as for individual people is that this leads to a creative explosion, because how many of us have ideas in the shower, or ideas when we're out walking or running or walking the dog or doing the dishes or whatever we are doing, creative ideas, what if I did this? And then the shoulders slump as you think about, well, yeah, but the execution better take me 2 weeks or a month or 6 months. I don't have that kind of time. When that layer collapses in the middle, and when many more things become possible, the sorts of things that used to take 3 months now can be done in an afternoon with AI configured properly, imagination becomes the point of that. And at the other end, when you develop outputs yourself, you write a book yourself, you write a film yourself, when you create a work artifact, a PowerPoint presentation yourself, because you've had your hands in the mix, you might well expect to get to something that's 80, 90%. I'm a writer, so hopefully my first drafts are 70, 80% good. With AI, we can't rely upon that. And so the back end of the creative process, the verification, the copy editing if you're writing, the fact checking, all of that becomes super important, because you haven't had your fingers on this middle execution level in the way that you would if you were self-driving. Some of that was done by AI, and you need to be accountable as a human being for the quality of that output. So the two ends get magnified, the imagination layer and the verification level, and the execution layer gets shrunk. That's the world that we now live in. So I do want to finish with what I'm looking for in change consulting right now. Very different than what I was looking for in the 1990s. When I hired, my firm was 50 people, so I had 50 change consultants for me, and that run change programs where there were 100 people who were qualified in change management. So I've been in this world for 30 years, and it's changed. And what I'm looking for now is not just people who know change. So, in my opinion, to know change today is to have some familiarity with the premises of adaptive adoption, the leadership delta, change agility, and behavioral governance. I'm not asking people to drink the Kool-Aid, but they have to understand the principles and be able to argue their way one way or the other, whether more traditional change management would be useful or whether adaptive adoption would be useful. So the lowest level is people can name most of the 20 pillars. The next level up, they would be able to run diagnostics and use adaptive adoption with a client. master level, we can begin to adapt and flex and change and version control the framework as it evolves. And then finally, teachers at the highest level. But that's only a third of it. I also want people who really understand AI, because most of the change work that's happening in 2026 in AI depends on you knowing how to use AI well. Now, what do I mean by AI power use? It's not a chatbot. If you're still chatting and prompting, you're in 2024. You need to understand context engineering, harness failure mode, security, frontier agentic capabilities. You need to be using it daily. You need to be able to design workflows, and you need to understand how to orchestrate workflows on an organizational level. Now, you may say, well, that's not a change management job. That's more of a kind of technical strategy job. Yeah, we don't get the luxury today as change professionals from, in a sense, putting our hands over our eyes and saying, oh, that's the technical side. Because I think to be useful in change today, you have to understand enough about the guts of AI. You have to have gone through the learning process in AI so that you can help your clients do so. It's why 2 years ago, I said to myself, I'm going to become a power user. And now, just to give you an example, I'm being certified as a Claude certified architect. I've dove deep into machine learning. And perhaps this is rather more than you'd want to get involved in, but this is an example of what I think to be useful to clients. You need to have traveled up the adoption curve yourself and be something of a power user. So I would not hire a change management person today who was not an AI power user, not least because they'll be considerably less efficient if they're not using AI tools. And I think also I want people to understand AI strategy and architecture. So the difference between SaaS, build versus buy, homegrown AI, when you roll your own, the failure modes for AI, where change management fits into AI strategy. So these are, for me, the three things that I'm looking for in people that I work with today on projects that matter to clients. So just to remind you, Paul Gibbons Advisory is where you can find the free tools and white papers, the research provenance for everything I've just discussed here. On Maven, there are 2 certification courses available now. One's called Leadership Delta, which is a 1-day course in building your chief of staff. And there's a second course being set up, which is a friction audit course, which will teach people how to diagnose the frictions that are blocking adoption inside organizations. And we're going to have a Master the Craft course, which is AI literacy for 2026 and not 2023, when we start talking about AI literacy. I wrote that AI literacy 2024. I developed a framework for AI literacy in 2024. I hasten to say, the world has moved on and we need something more advanced than AI. There'll be a course on that. And then finally, there'll be a course on how to lead AI-driven change based around the models and methods that I've just described to you today. You can find that on Maven. Thank you for listening. Paul Gibbons signing off. Share this with friends. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.